All right, I'm uploading the part 4 on Maimonides, if I pronounced that right, which I didn't. But I wanted to uh, put in a little intro before I get into the video, part 5, which is on the Tanakh's last day signs and the Jewish traditions of Passover. We are under attack. Alt-right conservatives or possibly Russian infiltrators are going after today. Yesterday they went after Soros. He had an explosive device in his mailbox. Today the Clintons, Obama, CNN, care of or for John Brennan, who's with an MSNBC contributor. So they messed up there. It was during Poppy Harlow's show. Stay away from Poppy. She's untouchable. You leave her alone. You go through me. So we are under attack. Either alt-right conservatives or Russian infiltrators. They're still trying to figure it out and investigate the matter. But they'll find it. They'll know who did it. They did it with the guy who was doing the anthrax, mailing anthrax to people, and found out it was an old man, unless you believe the conspiracy theories. But yeah, I mean, there was a conspiracy theory about the Illuminati, remember? The Illuminati were going to destroy the world in 2018. Form a new currency, 2018. Guess what's going on, people? Wake up. We've got a self-declared white nationalist as the president of the United States, who's controlling all 3 branches and every state government. And he's controlling, through extortion, all the world. And yet he's still just a puppet to Putin, who announced yesterday that the United States is about to collapse because Trump is his puppet. So here it is, people, just as prophesied and just as predicted in these last days. This is it. You know, all of you guys thought this was all just a joke, just some conspiracy theory, because those in control changed the definition of a conspiracy theory. A conspiracy theory is a legitimate concern about criminal activity composing of more than one person. It is not fake news. And so it can't be a theory if it's fake news. So yeah, we're in it, people. This is it. So I'm going to stop this and then come back to the video. Okay, now we can get to the main video for this part. But first I wanted to bring up a definition of Daniel that I just remembered before starting here. Most people had translated as my judge is God. Dan, the Yod El. That is a later addition. It was not the original name. It was just Dan El, judge of God. So Daniel is the judge of God in Babylon. He is all the stories talk about him, how he is the judge, and standing up to Nebuchadnezzar and saying, hey, no, my God does not allow this, and I judge you herewith. Oh, your God is great and mighty. You weren't eaten by a lion. You weren't burned, or your fellow Babylonian named friends. And sure enough, you've convinced me. you're better than any of the astrologers and priests that I have. So yeah, judge of God. Just like Samson is the Sun King. So there's some more information for you. So the last days Messiah will be the judge. Christians tend to think, oh, only God is judge. No man can ever be a judge. And they take their own scripture out of context, where it says, judge not lest ye be judged, but then they don't keep reading where it indicates you need to judge righteously. That's how you judge. So yes, you can judge, but not like a beam and mote, which is another thing of Jesus's. If you've got problems, you're not the one qualified to judge somebody of that same problem. You have to be good. So when people are trying to tell you, you can't judge me, you can tell them to their face, yes, I can. I don't do that. And so then people will realize that they need to stop doing bad things. They need to stop committing crime. So, yeah. All right. So, yeah, and I was having a discussion with somebody just prior to this about in the law of Moses is a court proceeding for how to deal with people who make false accusations. It's in Deuteronomy chapter 19, and how to punish people who are guilty of false accusations. And we need that now here in the United States, because everybody's accusing everybody of all sorts of false accusations. You know, Trump accusing Mexicans of being rapists. You know, the caravan, oh, they've got Middle Easterners, they're going to kill us, MS-13, oh, we've got to stop them. You know, it's a simple law of Moses prescription for the courts. If you lie, you get punished, and you get punished according to the prescription that you sought for the person you were falsely accusing. So, Trump accused Mexicans of being rapists and murderers. Trump's making a false accusation. So what's the punishment? What is Trump doing to the Mexicans crossing our borders? He's locking them up. Thus, Trump, for false accusations, has to be locked up. Lock him up. It's that simple. You know, law of Moses was simple. Great stuff. But we're not holding people accountable. People are making false accusations left and right. You know, even with Dr. Ford, she was making an accusation. She seemed to be legitimate, but it was not taken to court. She needs to take it to court. It needed to be resolved in the court before his hearing. The hearing needed to be postponed for a court. And if it's found that she was lying, then she needs to be punished. You know, everybody who makes a false accusation on social media, in person, in government, you know, if it's false, you need to be held accountable. And that's what's going on. Nobody is being held accountable. And because nobody is being held accountable, people are committing crimes against other people. That's why I'll just call them bombs, whatever the package was. You know, at Soros's house, at the Clintons' house, Obama's house, CNN headquarters intended for John Brennan, who's actually a MSNBC contributor, and apparently there's also a senator down in Florida or somewhere. And so these are the results of not holding people accountable for false accusations. Because people then start committing crimes. based on false accusations. They justify their false accusations and act them out. And Trump is getting other people to do his false accusing for him. We need to put a stop to it. We need it stopped now. All right, so the last day's signs. Sun, moon, stars. It's that simple. But, if we need to go over them, Isaiah 13:9. Isaiah talks about it. So we'll go through the ritual of looking it up. Isaiah 13:9. Before the day of the Lord cometh, cruel both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate. That's what's going to happen. That's what I told you. Nobody is being held accountable, and as a result, people are getting angry. They're getting violent, and the United States will be destroyed. And so, yeah, Putin is correct. The United States is over as a dominant country in the world, and he will destroy the sinners out of it. And 10, for the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in its going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. Those are eclipses. All right. And then Ezekiel 32:7. So again, even in Ezekiel, which I've been utilizing, is all about the last days Messiah. Even Ezekiel talks about it as well. Ezekiel 32:7. Okay. And when I shall put thee out, I will cover the heaven, and make the stars thereof dark. I will cover the sun with a cloud, and the moon shall not give her light. Same thing. So Joel is another one. Joel has it in a couple of places. Joel chapter 2 verses 10 and 31, and then 3:15. Do I need to go over it? Do you understand? They're talking about eclipses. Solar eclipse, lunar eclipse. This is what to look forward to. Now, those of you who know astronomy and how eclipses work, you know that they're common. They happen quite often. Jerusalem just had one back in, when was it, July? I did a video on it, so I show you the picture of it. Yeah, it's that simple, and that's what they're referring to. And so, yeah, that's the signs that Jesus uses and John the Revelator uses, but I'll talk about those when I get to the Christian part of my stuff. So that's the Jewish signs to look for in the last days. And yes, the temple will be built in the middle of the United States, and all the world shall be gathered. Those are other signs, but those are not stellar signs to look for. These stellar signs precede these other events, and they give you the time frame of when they happen. And if you understand astronomy, like I mentioned, you know that they happen all the time. So how do we know when they occur? Because, oh, we just had one back in such and such and nothing happened. Well, yeah, well, you got to know other things about where the source of this information came from, because Isaiah isn't the first one to bring it up. There is other people who brought it up. So you can't just stick to your own religion, which is a branch off of the original. You got to go to the original religion. All right, so Jewish tradition with the Passover. Okay, So here we can go into Exodus, and let's see, which chapter was it? Aaron's rod becomes a serpent. Why are you not working? Alright, Lord destroys the cattle, boils, hail and fire. Did I use this video to point out that I was watching an Egyptian video? I don't think I did. It was one of the other videos. Yeah, the hail and fire from the sky. Most people, scholars, believe it's because of the volcanic eruption that occurred on one of the Greek islands. However, under Tutankhamun, there was a meteor strike that hit Egypt. Tutankhamun is the son of Akhenaten, who scholars are starting to say, hey, wait a minute, he's sounding a lot more like Moses, just as Sigmund Freud did in the early 1900s. Okay, so that's not the one I'm looking for, though. There we go, fix that problem. Alright. Okay, thick darkness in all of Egypt. Okay. Yeah, humble thyself before me. Locusts. It's after the locusts. Okay, how long shall this man be a snare unto us? Let the men go, that they may serve the Lord their God. Knowest thou not yet that Egypt is destroyed because of the locusts? Alright. We will go. And they were driven out of Pharaoh's residence. And stretch your hand over Egypt. And rod. There came the locusts. And Pharaoh called in haste for Moses. I have sinned. Forgive me. Entreat the Lord on my behalf. Cast them into the Red Sea, which is actually the Reed Sea. And Pharaoh did not get his heart hardened by God or the Lord. And it was Pharaoh who hardened his heart against God, and thus didn't let the children of Israel go. And then the Lord says to Moses, here we go. Here is the purpose of Passover. And, okay, Lord said to Moses in verse 21 of Exodus chapter 10, stretch out thine hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. And Moses stretched forth his hand, and there was thick darkness for 3 days. Is this it? No, this isn't it. Here we go. Chapter 11, the firstborn. Remember, the whole theme of the Torah is birthright blessing of the firstborn and usurping by another brother. And so here we have Pharaoh of Egypt, who follows this same pattern with their firstborn being the successor to the throne. And so here the Lord is going to slay the firstborn in every Egyptian home. Okay. And the Lord said to Moses, I will bring one more plague upon Pharaoh. Yeah, there it is. In verse 10 at the end. Okay. Pharaoh is getting upset. And so Pharaoh has a hardened heart even more, and he would not let them go. Let my people go. In verse 28 of chapter 10, and Pharaoh said unto him, Moses, Get thee from me, take heed to thyself, see my face no more, for in that day thou seest my face, thou shalt die. And Moses said, Thou hast spoken well, I will see thy face again no more. They are not tying this to Deuteronomy chapter 19 that talks about false accusers that I just brought up at the beginning here. Pharaoh was falsely accusing Moses and refusing to let the children of Israel go and condemn them to die. And so now we get to the punishment of Pharaoh and the Egyptians, but specifically Pharaoh. Speak now in the ears of the people, and let every man borrow of his neighbor, and every woman of her neighbor, jewels of silver and jewels of gold. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, and in the sight of the people. And Moses said, Thus saith the Lord, About midnight will I go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh. So we can see, connecting this with Deuteronomy 19, that Pharaoh denied Moses from being the legitimate heir to the throne of Egypt. And therefore, the legitimate heir to the throne of Egypt would die by the Lord. So Pharaoh's son is going to die by the Lord's hand in consequence of Pharaoh's false accusation. Okay. In the firstborn of the maidservant, that is in the middle, firstborn of beasts. So God's going all out. Animals and men firstborn, all to die. There will be no succession anymore in Egypt. So Pharaoh is preventing Moses from being the ruler and taking back the throne that rightfully belonged to his father, who was usurped by Pharaoh. And thus Pharaoh is now going to lose all succession. And there was a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it any more. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue, against man nor beast, that ye may know that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. And let's get to the blood on the doorposts. Okay. Lord spake unto Moses in chapter 12, the month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. So what you're seeing here is Moses creating a calendar, a new calendar. The last days Messiah is going to create a new calendar. It's not going to be the Christian calendar with the Norse gods that are in the names of the months and the days of the week. Well, days of the week, the months are Roman. Okay, speak ye in all the congregation of Israel. On the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb. according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the house be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls, and blah, blah, blah. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male, firstborn of the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep, or from the goats. And ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month of the whole assembly, and shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take the blood, and strike it on the 2 side posts, and on the upper door posts of the houses wherein they shall eat it. So again, you see the pattern. Abel was murdered, and the usurper is a murderer. And this is the symbolic significance of sacrificing animals rather than humans, is to symbolize the murder of the good king, and the need for the son to take back the kingdom from the usurper of his father. So there's the interpretation and meaning of sacrifices in a simplified manner. And take the blood, put it on the 2 side posts of the upper door posts of the houses, wherein they shall eat it. And so they're having what Christians call a sacrament. You sacrifice the animal in remembrance of the sacrifice of the father who was murdered by the brother, and then the son restores the kingdom of the father. That's what Moses was trying to do with Egypt. He was trying to restore the kingdom, and then he then became the father, so that Jesus, Joshua, was the one to restore the kingdom by taking the house of Israel into the promised land. Same pattern in a cyclical manner, because sons become fathers, and fathers begat sons, and sons then take over for the fathers, over and over again. Continuous cycle. Okay. Alright. And that is the Exodus. And that is Passover. It's because the Lord passed over those who remembered the theme of the good king taken over by the usurper, and then the son restoring the kingdom of the murdered father. And in verse 14, and this day shall be unto you a memorial. Ye shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations, and ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. And then unleavened bread and stuff like that. So let's go into the internet to talk about how Elijah plays in this Jewish tradition with Passover. And I'll show you how they're one and the same. And okay, come on. Alright. Elijah Wiki. Wikipedia is my source for this. It's a good source, covers the basics. It obviously doesn't have a full understanding, but it has what I need to express about the last days Messiah. If it will process. There we go. Okay, so Elijah is not my God is Yah, and that's a later addition. That vowel yod is a later addition. or pronoun yod, personal pronoun. It was originally El Yah. And so God El, or not God El, God Yah, plain and simple. So Elijah was simply the God Yah. And, okay. Okay, so the biblical account, Christian end of Elijah and Malachi, other texts, Elijah and Judaism, there we go. There's the chair, cup, and stuff for Passover. Okay, and then after that is Lilith. Alright, so circumcision also is involved with this. Circumcision is for babies, sons, not a coincidence, as I've been trying to tell you guys. So at Jewish circumcision ceremonies, a chair is set aside for the use of the prophet Elijah. Elijah is said to be a witness, a judge, at all circumcisions of baby boys, because he's the last days Messiah, when the sign of the covenant is placed on the body of the child. The custom stems from Mount Horeb. No, it doesn't. Passover. Okay, and in fact, it goes, well, yeah. Okay. Forsaking the covenant, the altar is the sword. Let's need to take it away, because, yeah, Moses. Moses was supposed to circumcise, and he was called a bloody man by Miriam. And then, Simeon lost his birthright because of circumcising the tribe that raped Dinah. So, yeah, it was not Elijah. It didn't originate with him. Okay, Elijah's cup. Alright, in Talmudic literature, now remember, it's not the Torah, it's not the Tanakh, so it's third in authority. Elijah would visit rabbis to help solve particular difficult legal problems. This is the last days Messiah, what he's going to do. Explain the Torah. He's going to show you how to judge people according to Deuteronomy 19. Malachi had cited Elijah as the harbinger of the Eschaton. Thus, when confronted with reconciling impossibly conflicting laws or rituals, the rabbis would set aside any decision until Elijah comes. Oh, man, that's not justice, people. Come on. But yeah, the last days Messiah, he will figure out how to set up a legal system of justice so that the victims don't get victimized and the accusers don't make false accusations. Okay, in Deuteronomy 19, people. It's been there the whole time. Torah. Come on. Okay. One such decision is the Passover Seder. So requiring 4 cups or 5 cups of wine. Each serving of wine corresponds to one of the 4 expressions of redemption in the book of Exodus. But there's an extra verse, and that may apply. So is it 4 or is it 5? The last days Messiah, who is Elijah, is the fulfillment of the Exodus. Therefore, you don't need to worry about the tradition of Passover. It's fulfilled. Okay. And they don't have it here. Oh, okay. So yeah, the cup. But there it is. All right. So during the Passover, they have an extra cup set out for Elijah, and a whole table place setting is set out for Elijah, and they open the door, the east, right? They don't say it here. Okay, so you can't rely on Wikipedia all that much. That's the eastern door that you're supposed to open for Elijah. And if you don't have an eastern door, the one that's closest to the east. And so the Jewish tradition is that the actual Elijah from the past in the Bible is going to appear as a ghost one day, but whose table is he going to come to? Because he can only come to one person, so who's he supposed to come to? Again, tradition, you think things through, people. This is all symbolic of the last days Messiah. And okay, and of course the sun rises in the east, sets in the west. So the rising sun is the child of the setting sun who died. All symbolic there. So the last days Messiah is the child of the father who was murdered. And thus you need to open your door on the east side for the last days Messiah. The God, Yah. And hospitality, the place setting of food and a cup of wine. Wonder if they would ever put out Mountain Dew, because they didn't have Mountain Dew back then, but I'm sure if they did, they would have put Mountain Dew in the Torah. That would solve this whole problem. Okay, so that's it, and then they would read from the Torah as part of the Passover tradition. And so there you see how the Passover is tied to not only the Exodus, but tied to Elijah, and how it all is symbolic of this family quarrel over the birthright blessing, and referring to the last days Messiah. Okay, so let's get to the fun thing of Lilith. Now, those of you who are in Judaism, you know about Lilith. You've heard about her. Jewish mysticism talks about her as well. Unless you're ultra-Orthodox, then you don't believe in Jewish mysticism. But Lilith was the first wife of Adam. And there was a debate of who was to be on top. And I would need to click over to Lilith. They don't have it here. Oh, yep, there it is. So if you're at Elijah Wikipedia page, you go down to the Lilith section, and there's this was found in the person of Lilith, and Lilith is a purplish blue color. You click on it, that'll take you to the Lilith page in Wikipedia. And then you scroll down to where it talks about the problem she had with Adam, because Adam wanted a certain thing, and Lilith said, "No, I will not do it." And so you can find out for yourself. But it has to do with the whole concept of the firstborn son, because Lilith refused to have a firstborn son with Adam, because of what she was refusing. And so she rebelled. And as a result, she was cursed and cast out to the east. But she didn't partake of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Eve and Adam did. And therefore, Adam and Eve were cast out of the Garden of Eden, and Lilith remained. And so thus she becomes a demon essence who plagues mankind, specifically the children born through women who are the daughters of Eve, and jealous, revengeful woman is what's going on here. And so that's the story of Lilith. She becomes, in Hebrew, it's night, is what Lilith means. So darkness. And so she's a night demon as a result. And she's the one who is attributed to when your baby dies of SIDS, sudden instant death syndrome. People, you can't put your baby with their face smothered in the bed. You have to put them on their backs. So my mom put me on my stomach, so fortunately I didn't die, but you got to be very careful with babies. They don't know what's going on yet. They're brand new to a body, so you got to watch over them. You can't just put an amulet on your door of the baby's room and expect that the baby will magically be saved if you put your baby face down on the bed. Doesn't work that way. You've got to do precautionary measures of putting the baby on its back. Okay, so that's Lilith. That's who she was and where she came from and what she's about and why she's wanting to kill babies. And so as you can see, she has a direct impact on the last days Messiah. Because remember, Delilah was involved with Samson. She tried to have Samson killed. Samson is the Sun King. And so, yet he's also the symbol of the last days Messiah. So there's a mixture of both the father who's murdered and the son who is supposed to reclaim the throne of his father. And Lilith plays a part in it. Okay. And the Jewish tradition with Lilith incorporated Elijah. See, as the story goes, as recorded here in Wikipedia, Elijah encountered Lilith and instantly recognized and challenged her. "I know thee, demon. Unclean one, where are you going?" Unable to avoid or lie to the prophet. It's easy to lie to a prophet. She admitted she was on her way to the house of a pregnant woman. She was going to do her regular thing. And so here we have a pregnant woman, and her intention was to kill the woman and eat the child, because she's a demon, so they exaggerate. And so if you're familiar with Revelation chapter 12, which Jews reject the New Testament, but I would recommend, if you are Jewish and you're watching my video, go to Revelation chapter 12. This is where John the Revelator got it from. And they both got it, both Jews and John got it from the Egyptians. Because I'll get to that in a future series after I talk about Christians. Okay. Elijah pronounced his malediction. "I curse you in the name of the Lord. be silent as a stone." But Lilith was able to make a bargain with Elijah. She promised to forsake her evil ways if Elijah will remove his curse. To seal the bargain, she gives Elijah her names. So just as people have to put Hashem in place of Yahweh when they write or even speak in Jewish tradition, that's carried over into this Lilith tradition among the Jews. And so when you give somebody their name, you get their power. Thus, the name of God is concealed so that people don't get God's power. Even though Elijah is the God Yah, and thus had God's power. And they were, okay, so Lilith gives Elijah her names so that they can be posted in the houses of pregnant women. And that's where you get the talismans of the names of Lilith that Jewish houses will have over the door of their house or of the baby's room when a woman is pregnant or when a new baby is born. And it's used as an amulet is what it is, not a talisman. So that's where that came from. And it's all symbolic of the last days Messiah, who is going to do battle with the usurper who killed his father so that he can take back the throne. And Lilith promises, "Where I see those names, I shall run away at once. Neither the child nor the mother will ever be injured by me." And so, yes, Elijah, or the last days Messiah, will conquer the usurper of both the government and the religion, and will conquer Lilith symbolically, the darkness, the dark one, and the evil one, symbolically meaning from dark, because when you're dead, you're in the underworld. The sun is below the hemisphere, and they didn't have quick transportation to see that the sun keeps going around the earth, because this earth is actually going around the sun as the earth rotates on an axis. But that's where they develop all these stories from, is seeing the movements of the celestial bodies in the sky. So they watch as the sun rises, oh, just like birth, and then it's at its full peak, oh, that's when he's king. And then death, that's when he dies. And then darkness, and you can't see anything, you can't do anything. And so that's slavery and usurpation of the kingdom. And then rebirth the next day. Yay, the usurper has been conquered by the child of the father who died. It's that simple, not complicated. And that's how it all works. And yeah, this gets to be a short one then, I guess. So I hope you guys are understanding the pattern. I hope you guys are now seeing how to properly interpret the Torah, the Tanakh, the Talmud, and other Jewish stories about the last days Messiah, how to identify how it's related to the last days Messiah. This was why they were written. This is how they were written. And this ends the Jewish portion of the Jewish understanding of the last days Messiah. And so the next one we'll go over is the Christian version. Then we'll get into the Egyptian version, and then the Mormon version, and I think St. Patrick will be moved up along with Jesus as a fish. The ichthys, the fish symbol, I think that'll be moved into Christian traditions, like I did here with the Jewish traditions. And so, yeah, St. Patrick and the fish Jesus will be moved over. So the other symbols, the Norse god Tyr and the Chinese New Year of the dog, that'll be in a separate video near the end. Okay, that's how we shall proceed.